Vanderbilt, the tycoon who bullied his way to success. Welcome back. Imagine building a fortune so massive that even in the 1800s, your wealth would be the equivalent of over $200 billion today. That was Cornelius Vanderbilt, the man who started with nothing more than a rowboat in New York Harbor and ended up controlling America's railroads, crushing rivals, and leaving behind a legacy of both admiration and fear. His story is one of raw ambition, relentless drive, and a ruthlessness that still sparks debates about whether he were a hero of progress or just a bully in a top hat. Born in 1794 on Staten Island, Cornelius was the son of a poor farmer who ferried goods across the harbor in a small boat. The family was Dutch, stubborn, and hard-working, but far from wealthy. Young Cornelius wasn't known for his love of books. In fact, he dropped out of school by the age of 11. What he did have was an almost feral sense of determination and a knack for seeing opportunities where others saw nothing. At just 16, he convinced his parents to lend him $100 to buy his own boat. In return, he promised to pay them back with interest. That tiny ferry service became the seed of an empire. By his 20s, Vanderbilt earned the nickname Commodore, a playful jab at his growing fleet of ferries. But behind the nickname was a young man with an iron will. He was competitive, cunning, and never afraid of confrontation. When rivals tried to undercut him, he slashed prices so low he nearly bankrupted himself, then watched his competitors collapse before raising fares back up. This survival of the fittest instinct would define his career. The real turning point came in the 1830s and 1840s, when America was expanding rapidly. Steamboats were the arteries of commerce, and Vanderbilt seized control of them with brutal efficiency. He partnered with powerful figures like Daniel Drew, but quickly learned to distrust alliances. Vanderbilt preferred domination. He once famously said, "Law? What do I care about law? Ain't I got the power?" That line wasn't just bluster. He often ignored rules, regulators, and even court orders if they stood in his way. By the 1850s, he had turned his eye to railroads, sensing that iron tracks, not water, would carry the future. At first, old money families scoffed at the rough Staten Island boatmen muscling into their territory. But Vanderbilt didn't just enter the railroad business. He seized it with ferocity that shocked Wall Street. He consolidated failing lines, cut unnecessary costs, and imposed discipline where others saw chaos. When rivals tried to block him, he launched hostile takeovers, sometimes manipulating stock prices to outwit them. One famous clash with Daniel Drew and Jay Gould turned into a financial war over the Erie Railroad. It was brutal, filled with lawsuits, bribery, and even counterfeit stock. Vanderbilt lost that battle, but the war for dominance made him sharper. His crowning achievement came in the 1860s and 1870s. Vanderbilt created the New York Central Railroad, one of the most powerful transportation networks in the world. Suddenly, farmers in the Midwest could send grain to New York in record time. Cities grew, industries thrived, and Vanderbilt's fortune swelled. By the time of his death in 1877, he controlled a vast empire and had become the richest man in America. But Vanderbilt's rise was not without controversy. He was feared as much as he was respected. Critics accused him of being a monopolist who crushed small businesses and manipulated markets to his advantage. Workers saw him as a tyrant who cared little for their struggles. And he wasn't exactly charitable during his lifetime. His philanthropy came late, where he donated $1 million to create Vanderbilt University in Tennessee. Compared to his fortune, it was pocket change, but it signaled at least some awareness of legacy. Vanderbilt's personal life was just as fiery as his business career. He had 13 children, but he trusted only one, his son William, to carry on his empire. His other children he often dismissed as frivolous or incompetent. When he died in 1877, he left the bulk of his fortune to William, sparking family disputes that lasted for years. The Commodore's was his final power play, one last ruthless move to ensure that his empire wouldn't fracture. Looking back, Vanderbilt's story is both inspiring and unsettling. On one hand, he embodied the raw energy of America's rise in the 19th century. He built infrastructure, connected cities, and pushed the country into the modern age. On the other hand, his methods, price wars, monopolies, and disregard for ethics raise uncomfortable questions. Did his success come from genius or from bullying his way to the top? Perhaps it was both. The lesson here is complex. Vanderbilt showed that ambition and vision can transform the world, but unchecked greed can leave scars just as deep. He was the kind of man who made America both rich and ruthless. And maybe that's why his name still echoes, etched in a university, stamped on a fortune, and whispered in business law as a tycoon who bullied his way to success. If you enjoyed this story, leave a money bag in the comments.